I hope you're sitting down because your class has just been nerfed. Hello there, welcome back to Marcelian Online, and this week's episode is looking down bad. We have more class tuning on the 11.2 PTR, looking up to Season 3 with a lot of the overpowering specs being nerfed and some of the not so much overpowering specs being buffed. Of course, as always, the tuning is gonna keep going on and we're gonna keep you updated. Every week this happens, so you know exactly where your main is or where it isn't if you do intend to switch for some reason. But just as a quick reminder, this is PTR. The numbers are always gonna go up and down, and in the end, it matters if you're having fun or not. Because if you're not doing damage, you're probably not having fun. What am I talking about? Let's look at the changes. We're gonna start it off with the Death Knight. Rider of the Apocalypse has the damage of Morgraine in Death and Decay increased by 50%. And for Unholy, fixed an issue causing Morgraine's Death and Decay to benefit twice from Unholy Death Knight Mastery. We're gonna look at Frost first of all. A couple of issues fixed, causing Frozen Dominion to appear on the cooldown manager. The second strike of Frostbane now also benefits from Shattering Blade, and Frostbane Override Aura can no longer be cancelled. Now, if you thought that Frost Death Knight will be nerfed because it's doing triple the damage of everybody else, come back next week, I guess. Unholy Legion of Souls now summons a Magus of the Dead when talented. Unholy Aura now increases the damage of White Mane's Undeath. Reaping minion damage increase effect on Soul Reaper's Explosion now increases the damage of White Mane's Undeath. Mastery Dreadblade now increases the critical strike damage of White Mane's Undeath. And Unholy Blight. Plague Mastery now increases the critical strike damage of Unholy Blight, and fixed an issue causing Morbidity to not function correctly with Super Strain's Blood Plague. Now, clearly, this is a lot of it addressing Rider of the Apocalypse as the more underwhelming one of the hero talents for Death Knight in general. For Unholy, it's clear that they want White Mane, or I guess the Rider of the Apocalypse minions, to be buffed by anything that buffs minions even more. It probably only really makes sense since they are part of your summoned dead that you're bringing to the combat. Side note, it is a little bit unfortunate to see no actual changes have been happening to Unholy when it comes to its rework with the community up in roar, where they're probably going to start feeling the bitterness pile up in the bottom of their throat, that sourness and death, kind of like Unholy and how it actually feels to play. Moving on. Druid. Keeper of the Grove, the 2-set bonus now capped at 50 times base spell power was 50% health. I don't know what that means, but I don't think most people have been playing Keeper of the Grove on the PTR unless I've missed something, since all I've seen is a loon. For Evoker, Scale Commander, we have developer notes. Okay. The tier set bonus was unintentionally incentivizing players to deep breath for as long as possible. The following changes are intended to discourage deep breathing long after you've already flown over your enemies. Command Squadron, summoned by the Mana Force 2-set bonuses, will no longer pyre enemies behind you. Command Squadron pyre damage increased by 40%. It is no longer possible to slow yourself down to walking speed during deep breath or breath of eons. Since I haven't played Evoker myself, I would imagine this was just a degenerate gameplay change, which is always great to see since we don't want to include deliberate slow of deep breath to increase the value of the tier set. So it's great to see these being addressed and more like this to come. Dark Ranger Beast Mastery, with Beast Mastery being the top dog in DPS in the PTR. Black Arrow damage increased by 20%. Phantom Pain damage share increased to 20%, up from 15%. The Bell Tolls damage bonus increased to 4%, previously was 3%. But don't you worry your pretty little heads, we're coming back to Beast Mastery in a second. Pack Leader, Better Together has been updated, now increases Tip of the Spear damage bonus by 15%, previously was 10%. Dire Summons has been updated. Kill command reduction increased to 2.5 seconds, previously was 2, for survival only. Raptor Strike, Mongoose Bite reduction increased to 1.5 seconds, previously was 1 second. The 2-set bonus has made stat bonuses reduced to 6% from 8, and the 4-set bonus Stampede now functions on the Dawnbreaker ship and the Roshanon fight. Something that probably every pet class has been wondering when they saw that Dawnbreaker's coming back into the season. And for Beast Mastery specifically, the 4-set bonus Stampede damage is reduced by 35%. I think this is probably right, seeing as how the main damage source of Beast Mastery on the PTR has been Stampede. A fun thing to have, but since it's kind of passive and out of cooldown, it doesn't really count. Sentinel. For the 2-set bonus, we have the 2-set buff is now removed upon gaining the 4-set buff. And one more update to the 2-step bonus. Boon of a Loon aim shot damage bonus increased to 30%, previously was 20%. And finally, Beast Mastery, all damage dealt reduced by just 3%. Jesus, that probably doesn't seem like enough. Hunt's Master Call has been updated. Hati and Fenrir damage reduced to 10 seconds was 15 seconds. Fenrir's haste buff reduced to 4% was 8%. Hati pet damage buff reduced to 4% was 8%. So actually more nerfs. Moving on to Mage, sad days ahead. For the Frostfire Fire, Mana Force 2-set bonus has been updated. Ignite effectiveness has been reduced to 100%, previously was 150%. Frostfire Burst, Ice Nova, and Comet Storm damage bonus reduced to 20%, previously was 30%. And the 4-set bonus was updated. Glacial Spike damage reduced by 20%. Now, I believe that the top fire mages on the PTR that have tested this have concluded that this is very bad in terms of nerfs to fire and probably kills Frostfire completely, and doesn't really help fire overall, since fire wasn't really a problem for most of the PTR testing that we have seen in Mythic Plus at the very least. Maybe this is just addressing raid, but the single target damage being addressed will affect Mythic Plus as well. Spellslinger, the Mana Force 2-set bonus has been updated. Arcane Blast damage bonus reduced to 12%, previously was 20%. Ice Lance and Icicle damage bonus reduced to 10%, previously was 20%. For Arcane, that kind of makes sense because Arcane was dominating. And speaking of the Arcane 2-set bonus, Arcane Blast now additionally grants 2 stacks of Arcane Harmony. I think the overall nerf to Arcane doesn't really amount to much, which, listen, I don't particularly mind. Arcane deserves its spot in the spotlight. It's been needing it for years and years, but Fire and Frost taking a big hit, I don't know, because we're going to Frost now. The 2-set bonus, Icelands, now additionally has a 100% chance to grant 1 stack of Cold Front, to probably adjust for the low performance. And the 4-set bonus, spell damage bonus reduced to 8%, down from 10%. Never mind, I take that back. And for Sun Fury, Arcane Meteorite damage increased by 20%, and Arcane Phoenix Area of Effect spell damage increased by 30%. How is Arcane getting more buffs? I digress. We move on to Monk. For the Master of Harmony Brewmaster, Harmonic Surge damage is increased by 80%, probably because Master of Harmony was lagging behind Shadowpan in terms of damage performance. And for Mistweaver, Harmonic Surge healing is increased by 15%. Brewmaster bug fixes. Considering that we already had a video on the Brewmaster rework talking about some of these bugs, we've talked about them last week, we're talking about this week, and we have a Monk video coming up soon, so this will make a lot of sense. Fix an issue causing new Zaw when summoned by Call to Arms to not stomp or be healed when casting Purify. Fixed an issue causing new Zaw's resolve to not correctly trigger when a healing sphere timed out. And new Zaw resolve no longer ticks immediately upon application. Its healing has been adjusted accordingly. This resolves an issue where subsequent applications were losing healing ticks. Overall, great changes. Mistweaver, Shaylan's gift healing increased by 20%. Vivify direct healing increased by 80%, but its healing is no longer increased in PvP combat. Chi Harmony now increases healing taken by 25%, previously was 50%. I believe Chi Harmony was a talent that was kind of run almost in every build that I personally saw. Paladin. The Lightsmith hero talents. The Mana Forge set bonuses have been addressed. Lesser weapon healing increased by 100%. Lesser weapon damage reduced by 66%. Lesser Bulwark Absorb increased by 100%. And for protection, Hammer and Anvil is now cast at 40% effectiveness when activated by Hammer of the Righteous or Blessed Hammer. This is probably because Prot Paladin was the highest DPS tank on the PTR to probably an outrageous degree, some would say. I kind of like it, of course, because big damage, who doesn't like? But it was very skewed compared to the other tanks. So this is not a surprise. We're probably going to see more of this in the future for any spec that you think, oh my god, this does so much damage, I'm going to play it. And you, unfortunately, believe that that's going to hit the live servers. Now, for Holy Paladin, the Sacred Weapon will now prioritize other healers when cast without a target or cast via Divine Inspiration. Templar also has some changes for the 2-set bonus updated. Now correctly grants an additional Light's Deliverance stack on Imperium Hammer critical strikes regardless of the source of Imperium Hammer, and fixed an issue causing Hammer of Light to only cast 1 Imperium Hammer instead of 3 when it hits a single target. So overall buff to Templar. And we get to Warrior, the dead class that might not be as dead in the future. Colossus, the force bonus has been updated. Critical strikes with Mortal Strike and Shield Slam increases the damage dealt by rend and deep wounds by 80%, down from 100%. Mountain Thane, the force bonus slightly redesigned. Thank you, Lord. Ionizing strikes deal 100% more damage, and when you trigger ionizing strikes, you gain a charge of Thunder Blast, and your next Thunder Blast deals 100% additional damage. Ionizing strikes has been laughably poor as a damage source on the PTR, even with the, what was it, 700% buff last week. This is still not going to make it deal any significant amount of damage, and probably the main value of the tier set is giving you more Thunder Blasts. One question that I might have to ask without actually fully testing it with this current version is, will we have enough cooldown reduction to cast all of the additional Thunder Blasts before we over-generate them? Because it just so happens that occasionally, especially when you play Fury, your Thunder Blast's generation is so high when you pop your cooldowns that you might risk wasting some if you don't play correctly, or wasting them regardless if you play correctly or not, and now we get even more Thunder Blast charges. I would like a change for this force set to also reset the cooldown on Thunderclap or Thunder Blast in this sense, so that you can immediately cast it and not have to worry about, oh my god, the cooldown tick. Otherwise, you probably might be incentivized to run a giga buttload amount of haste. Slayer, which oddly enough has been performing really well for Warrior on the PTR, the force set bonus has been updated. Overpower, Raging Blow, damage increased by 10%, previously was 20%. And the triggered Reap of the Storm is at 150% effectiveness, previously was 100%. I think I can speak for every Warrior out there that we would love to see Slayer be competitive in Mythic Plus. Everybody's tired of playing the exact same build for the 3rd season in a row and not actually have these new cool hero talents supposedly be usable in all encounters. And for Protection Warriors out there that you thought your healing is gonna make it to life, Fueled by Violence heals you for 150% of the damage dealt by deep wounds, previously was 200%. This is a decent amount of nerf, considering that also your damage by your deep wounds is nerfed from the pure tier set as well. Overall, the healing did take a dip. I don't know if it's enough to make it insignificant, so it's probably still decent, but it's not gonna do those crazy things that you might have seen in the videos next week. The tuning this week has been very obvious and expected, some of it not as much, so I believe, I'm pretty sure at this point that most of the tuning is happening 2 weeks too slow in terms of what the testing that we do, so the tuning that we see right now is not really in accordance with last week's Mythic Plus and Raid testing that we've seen, but probably with 2 weeks ago testing phase, which is a little bit disconcerting considering that, at least on our side of the table, we're doing quite a bit of testing there. And before you go, make sure to check our Brewmaster rework video right here to see exactly what all of these changes do and why Brewmaster might actually be a tank you might be looking forward to in 11.2 and Season 3 in general, because it's looking pretty nice, not gonna lie. Monk Banzai?